After Umbridge's departure from Hogwarts, Harry concluded there was no point continuing his Dumbledore's Army lessons. Luna and Neville were seriously disappointed, and when Hermione later used her enchanted gallons to call on Dumbledore's army for help ahead, they and Ginny were quickest to respond. Harry was right. For all Snape's faults as defense against the dark art teacher, he did at least believe in practical application, so the Dumbledore's army wasn't necessary post-Umbridge, but it still had a very important role to play, both in terms of practical defense and as a figurehead of Hogwarts resistance. So what happened to Dumbledore's army after Harry left Hogwarts? Under the Carrows, the Dumbledore's army was more essential than ever. Hogwarts' new teachers, Death Eaters, Amicus and Alecto Carrow, made Umbridge look better, chinning up first years, making students practice the Cruciatus curse, teaching that Muggles are like animals, and beating students who stood up to them, students like Seamus, whose injurious his face. The Carrows were as cruel and abusive as you expect Voldemort's followers to be, but the Dumbledore's army responded with as much spirit and defiance as they were ever showed to Umbridge. Neville became the Dumbledore's army leader. At first, Neville, Ginny and Luna shared the leadership role, but then Luna was kidnapped, and with Ginny unable to return after Easter, it all failed for Neville, which was fitting, given how closely Neville and Harry was connected by the prophecy that could once have referred to either of them. As leader of the Dumbledore's army, Neville really showed his Gryffindor colors, brave, outspoken, refusing to give in. Those were all things he'd observed Harry do. The thing is, it helps when people stand up to them. It gives everyone hope. I used to notice that when you did it, Harry. Hermione's enchanted gallons remained priceless. In the early weeks of the Carrow regime, Neville, Ginny and Luna used these charmed coins to communicate, sneaking out to graffiti walls with phrases like Dumbledore's army or still recruiting. Luna used them to let Neville know she was safe, and Neville used them to call the other members of Dumbledore's army. Ginny, Luna and Neville tried to take back the sword of Gryffindor. Probably the decision to claim the sword had something to do with Dumbledore having left it to Harry, a fact Ginny might have known after the minister's visit to the Barrow. The thought of the sword hanging in Snape's office, a Slytherin who everyone knows had murdered Dumbledore, must have rankled too. But the only student defiant enough to actually take it were the Dumbledore's army leaders. They might have done it secretly, but actions like this showed that Dumbledore's army was no longer an underground group. The Room of Requirements provided the perfect base of rebellion, expanding to house all those who had fled or been expelled from the Carrow's Hogwarts. This was as much down to Neville as the room itself. As Seamus said, he really gets this room. You've got to ask it for exactly what you need. And it was a combination that gave the Dumbledore's army a real headquarters, exactly when one was needed. Neville's wish for food even opening up a new passage into the Hogshead. It was also Aberforth to serve the Dumbledore's army during their first meeting, and it is very possible he might have been reporting their activities to the Order, so you could say he'd been keeping an eye on Dumbledore's army since the beginning. When Neville strolled into his pub looking for food, it just brought the connection out into the open.